Coming up on this week's episode of the EV Resource Podcast, Ford has an 8-second EV for the drag strip, Tesla and Nikola are still battling over a patent, Kia has some big EV plans, and more. Hello and welcome to the EV Resource Podcast. I'm Zach Hurst, and each week I bring you the latest EV news, information, and answer your questions about electric vehicles. Thanks for being with me this week. Special thanks to Titan Auto and Tire for their support for this podcast. Titan is one of the very few independent shops in Virginia that are qualified to work on EVs. And from hybrids to Hummers, they fix everything. So that was a video that Ford released on YouTube this week, and they also had a press release explaining a little bit about the vehicle in the video. It is a Mustang. It's a purpose-built Mustang Cobra Jet. They're calling the Mustang Cobra Jet 1400. In their press release, they said that it is purpose-built and projected to deliver over 1,400 horsepower and over 1,100 foot-pounds of instant torque to demonstrate the capabilities of an electric powertrain in one of the most demanding race environments. Well, that is just any car that's going to run 8 seconds in the quarter mile is just absolutely destroying the competition. The fact that they're doing with this in EV in order to show the potential performance that an electric powertrain has, I think, is just incredible. Ford is really backing their commitment to show that EVs are the future, not only just for passenger cars, but also for race cars in any aspect, not just on the road course track, but also on the drag strip as well. Ford said that it is projected to crush the quarter mile in the low 8-second range at more than 170 miles per hour. Not horsepower, of course, 170 miles per hour, which is just quick. The global director of Ford Icons, Dave Parasak, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, said that Ford has always used motorsport to demonstrate innovation. Electric powertrains give us a completely new kind of performance, and the all-electric Cobra Jet 1400 is just one example of pushing new technology to the absolute limit. And they're excited to showcase what's possible in an exciting year when we also have the all-electric Mustang Mach-E joining the Mustang family. Well, I think there you go. That is just what they're all about. They want to sell the Mustang Mach-E, and they're going to push out anything they can. Of course, they're going to have fun doing it. But the Cobra Jet 1400 is not going to be something that is produced. You're not going to be able to go out there and buy it. This is entirely to showcase the fact that they know what they're doing when it comes to electric vehicles. Mark Rushbrook, who is the global director of Ford Performance Motorsports, also added that the project was a challenge for everybody at Ford Performance, but a challenge that they loved jumping into. They saw the Cobra Jet 1400 project as an opportunity to start developing electric powertrains in a race car package that we already had experience with. So they had performance benchmarks that they wanted to match and beat right now, and that it has been a fantastic project to work on, and hope that it's the first of many coming from the team at Ford Motorsports Performance, or Ford Performance Motorsports. So that is something that really blew up the internet this week. If you're in the EV space, you probably didn't avoid seeing this. But for those of you who haven't, I think you should definitely go over to YouTube, check out Ford's video. It's not very long. I mean, I just played it at the beginning of this clip. It is exciting. I would love to be able to see this in person. Hopefully when all of the coronavirus stuff settles down, we will be able to get back out to the track, and I would love it to see more and more EVs out crushing the internal combustion engine competition. This next bit of news this week comes to us from Simon Alvarez over at Teslarati, and he wrote an article about the Tesla Nikola kind of ongoing patent battle. And he says that actually it was almost 2 years ago that Nikola Motors surprised the trucking market by filing a $2 billion lawsuit alleging that the Tesla Semi copied several design elements from the Nikola One, the truck maker's flagship hydrogen long hauler. Well, news about the patent lawsuit has been kind of scarce for over a year, but recent updates indicate that Nikola has snatched a small victory from Tesla. Nikola's case outlined several characteristics of the One that were allegedly copied by Tesla, including the wraparound windshield, the mid-entry door, front fender design, and the all-electric truck's aerodynamic shape. And to highlight its point, Nikola stated that the similar drag coefficients between the One, theirs, which is a 0.37, and the Tesla Semi, which has a 0.36 coefficient of drag, was further proof that the battery electric long hauler was copied from their hydrogen fuel cell sleeper cab. Excerpts from Nikola's lawsuit pointed out that the Semi's design had caused confusion among the One's customers, which diverted sales from them to Tesla. Nikola also argued that the confusions might result in any problems that might arise from Tesla's Semi, that they would be attributed to the Nikola One, and they, of course, want to avoid that. And according to Nikola, both of these things are causing damage to its brand. Well, this week it looks like there's a small victory for Nikola. Their CEO, Trevor Milton, went to Twitter and shared a bit of news saying that Tesla has lost its bid to file a request with the Patent Trial and Appeal Board asking for a review to invalidate Nikola's side door patent for their Nikola One. Well, that request seems to have failed. So that is, yes, a small victory for Nikola, considering that it's fighting a very steep uphill battle. But, the dismissal of Tesla's effort here is a victory for Nikola in this case. The CEO said that the patents in the USPTO dispute, that Tesla has lost their bid, and that the U.S. Patent Trial Office not only upheld Nikola semi-truck important patents, but refused Tesla's ask to modify them. So the $2 billion lawsuit will be moving forward. We will defend our company's intellectual property no matter who it is. So it seems like the ongoing battle is set to continue. This is not a win or a loss on either end in its complete form. This is not the end. This is just another step in the process. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. No doubt when you compare the two, they do look very similar. So outside the legal realm, for those of us who just have two eyes and want to compare, when you look at the two of these, they do look very similar. If you took all badging off of them, possibly made a silhouette of them from the side and compared them, you wouldn't be able to see that many differences. Nikola's, I guess, advantage in this case is that they were first to market with their truck. So they did file the patents. They did come out with it first, before Tesla came out with the Tesla Semi. We'll see. It's something to keep watch on, and hopefully there will be a resolution that doesn't damage either company, because once again, the enemy is the internal combustion engine, the traditional semi-truck that's out there on the roads polluting the air and burning millions of gallons a year of gasoline. That is the enemy, not Tesla or Nikola. I personally wish for them both to succeed, find their space. You should never have any company that's stealing or copying, allegedly, from anybody else one way or the other. So if that's something that's proved that Tesla did, then obviously they should be held accountable for that. But let's get this put behind us and really go out there and fight the real fight. Kia has some big plans when it comes to EVs, and actually a dedicated plug-in hybrid by year's end and a battery electric crossover next year in 2021. This news coming to us from Sven Gustafsson of Autoblog, and he writes, actually back in January, Kia announced something called its Plan S strategy, $25. That wouldn't get us very far, would it? $25 billion plan broadly outlines its targets for electric vehicles, with the highlight being plans to sell 11 battery electric models by the end of 2025, including launching its very first dedicated new EV here in the US in 2021. Well, this week we now have some new details on what Kia meant for the latter, plus a new juicy tidbit about a new plug-in hybrid coming later this year. It comes via a scripted Earth Day video message by Neil Dunlop, product and technology PR manager, who's shown wandering around a forest, and Steve Kozlowski, manager of Kia's long-range strategy, product strategy, and mobility, who's quarantined at home. Kozlowski calls Plan S a preemptive shift away from being a traditional manufacturer of combustion vehicles to one focused on electric vehicles, electrified vehicles, and mobility. So more is said about Kia's first dedicated full EV model, due here by the end of 2021, possibly earlier in other markets, and riding on a new dedicated EV platform. They say it's a crossover design that really blurs the line between passenger cars, CUVs, crossovers. It's a little bit car, a little bit crossover. That was a quote from Kozlowski. And it should have a range of about 300 miles and a sub 20-minute fast charging time, which would be quite spectacular considering there aren't, I don't think, any other cars that will charge from 10 to 80% under 20 minutes. I think the Audi e-tron was probably closest to that. But they say in the end, it will be very stunning, dramatic new Kia EV, something you've never seen before. Of course, Kia already has experience with EVs. They've got the Soul and the e-Niro. So they're not new to the EV space, but it definitely looks like they're ramping up their plans and intentions, especially if they're going to come out with 11 new models by 2025. Well, neither Subaru or Toyota have been very active in the plug-in EV space. Of course, Toyota, I guess it's more than a decade ago, came out with the Prius as a hybrid, but it wasn't a plug-in model until later. And they really don't have that many plug-in hybrid models. I think other than the Prius Prime now, the RAV4 plug-in, I think, is the only other one that they have. And Subaru, of course, just, I don't think they've had really much of anything that I know of, at least not here in the US. So it's great news this week to hear that development between the two of them, a co-development to bring out a new full battery electric vehicle before 2025. It's going to be under the Subaru badge, and it's named the eVoltus. So it's going to be something that definitely pushes the boundaries and is a little bit polarizing, similar to the way the Cybertruck was, mainly because of the way it looks. So it's very polyagonal. I think that's a word. If not, I just made it up. Lots of very straight lines to it, which I think is great. I love that futuristic design. It definitely might not be very attractive to some people. I like it. They're planning on having dual motor, all-wheel drive with about 280 horsepower and approximately 300 miles of range. Details are scarce, though, and so there are a number of different sources that are revealing information about this, but it is still a concept. I wouldn't even say that it's a prototype yet, and that at this point, Subaru said that it'll happen before the middle of the decade, but some sources are actually saying as early as next year in 2021. So if you haven't seen it yet, it's eVoltus, EVOLTIS. Check it out. There's a couple images floating around the internet that really, I think, I don't know. I don't know how much of this will actually make it to production. Of course, concept cars typically will be a lot more bold and be much more of a statement than the actual production vehicles would do. But I think it's time for Subaru to do something bold again. They used to make some cars that had some pretty significantly, not unusual, but definitely designs that made a statement. And I think they've gotten away from that over the last few years. Certainly, making some cars that were kind of boring. So this I would really love to see, not only being their first full EV that they make, but also something that from the design side of things pushes the boundaries a little bit. And I think that would be really great. So we got to wait on this one at least until next year, possibly longer. But certainly as more information comes out, I will share it with all of you. And more on Toyota, actually, they have 3 new battery electric vehicles for the Chinese market. According to Elect Drive, Toyota is launching 3 new electric models for the Chinese market tomorrow, April 26th. One of these could also soon be sold in European markets. The 3 electric models are full battery electric versions of the sister models, the C-HR and Aizoa, which were introduced last year and built by Toyota's joint ventures with GAC and FAW, as well as the third being the Lexus UX 300e. The Toyota subsidiary first presented the compact electric SUV in November of last year, and at the time it was said that the UX 300e would be launched in China and selected countries in Europe in 2020. More on the Lexus, which actually I believe is their first EV model. So that's great to see Toyota bringing that to the Lexus brand. Certainly their luxury brand could use that electrification. They say that the Lexus UX 300e has an output of 150 kilowatts and a battery capacity of 54.3 kilowatt hours. So decent sized battery that should have a decent range to it. The NEDC range, they say, is 400 kilometers. I'll have to do some math on the conversion to miles on that. And of course, keep in mind that EPA range would be even less. Not that we're going to get it here in the US. At least there's no talk about that. But getting back on track here, charging capacity is 6.6 kilowatts. AC, so level 1, or rather level 2 charging. You're not going to get 6.6 kilowatts on level 1. And 50 kilowatts of DC fast charging. So not the fastest. In fact, that's actually kind of on the slow end. But hey, Toyota, you got to start somewhere with the full battery electric vehicles. I won't I won't get on them about having some slow fast charging. Designers have made very few changes to the look of the model, and the 300e also has the large grille typical of the Lexus UX burners, gas burners, and hybrids. A distinguishing feature is that the electric version has 2 charging connections instead of just 1 fuel filler cap, each located above the rear wheels. So that's something I've seen talked about actually on the internet. A lot of people ask, why do you have only 1 charging port? Why not have one on both sides of the vehicle to make it easier to pull into charging spots? You don't have to worry about how far the cord's going to stretch. So it's interesting to see that they are putting that into the design of the 300e, the UX 300e. So it's a step in the right direction for Toyota. Those of you who listen to the EV News Daily podcast with Martin Lee will certainly know at this point that Lexus and Toyota have some questionable marketing schemes when it comes to their advertisements. They have, at least that I have learned in Britain, said that they choose not to plug in almost word for word from their advertisements there. And honestly, they tout their hybrids as self-charging, which there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid. You either plug it in and get electricity from the grid, or you don't plug it in and you're burning fuel, gasoline, in order to charge the battery. So There's no such thing as a self-charging hybrid. Here, Toyota is kind of taking a 180. They're turning around and saying, you know what, especially in China, where it's the world's largest EV market, there is a desire for plug-in hybrids and full battery electric vehicles. So I don't care how they get there. That's the direction they need to be going. So I'm not going to jump all over them about the past. Let's look forward and make some really good electric vehicles. I would love it if they would actually build some for us over here in North America. That would be great too. I don't know. It seems like the auto manufacturers, their idea of what U.S. Consumers want, it doesn't include electric vehicles, which I think is a shame. And I also think that's wrong. I really think that people here in the U.S. do want electric vehicles. They just want ones that are compelling arguments for a competitive model, not a compliance car. So, baby steps, we'll get there. But good on you, Tesla. Good on you, Tesla, for sure. But good on you, Toyota and Lexus, for getting these models to China, and then in the future, looks like to Europe as well. Well, the last bit of news I have for you this week actually comes to us from Popular Mechanics, an article that they shared that is about a new Army vehicle that should be full electric. So it's called the JLTV, that's an acronym for Joint Light Tactical Vehicle, and it looks like it's going to be a replacement for the Humvee. So that is huge. I know the Army has used the Humvee for years. So they are planning on starting to purchase electric versions of the JLTV, and they believe that the gradual shift from liquid-fueled powered engines to, well, the article says electric engines. Of course, there's no such thing. It would be an electric motor. Anyway, sorry, sidetracked. Okay, so the Army believes that the gradual shift from liquid-fueled powered engines to electric motors could force it to electrify its wheeled vehicles. That would be still a 4x4. I think it is great to see something as significant as the U.S. military finally adopting electric vehicles and bringing that on board. And actually, I posted this to Facebook earlier this week, yesterday, and I just had to read this comment, actually, because Marvel Pinnock commented that says, for any vehicles that are built for military purposes, it's going to be very powerful. So if it's electric, it's going to be very powerful, especially for off-road terrains. These vehicles have to deal with harsh environments, so every part of it has to be up to the task. Cooling systems, wiring, charging systems, power for every hour, all systems built for its actions and counter reactions to all things tactical. I couldn't have said it better. That's why I wanted to read that comment, actually, Marvel, because there really is no way of putting it that's better than that. The Army's vehicles are put into the harshest environments in the world. They are used in battle. They are used in desert. I would expect that they would be testing these in many, many different ways, in the cold, in the extreme heat. This is going to be a vehicle that just really, in its own way, is a flagship vehicle for the EV world, saying that, hey, EVs are capable of anything. That's why I'm really excited about this. I personally really couldn't care one way or the other about what the Army's using, but the fact that they're choosing to go electric and what that represents for the EV community, to have a vehicle that they can point to that goes, look, this is out there being used by the military. This is on the front lines of whatever, battle or war, that the U.S. might be involved in. I'm not going to get into political stuff. So one way or the other, where you think that's right or not, I'm leaving that out. But this is something that, back to the article, Popular Mechanics says that they plan to eventually purchase a large fleet of these, up to over 49,000 JLTVs that would serve for 20 years or more. Now, I don't think it's realistic to expect that the battery packs would last for 20 years, but shoot, if you could get 10 out of them and then replace them, I would imagine that the overall costs would significantly be reduced compared to the current JLTV that they're using, because the current one, I believe, uses a large V8 diesel, which just the maintenance and fuel costs on that, I can only imagine how expensive those would get. So anyway, here's a picture of the JLTV for the Army. It is huge. And actually, here's a comparison to the Hummer or the Humvee rather, and you can see it is big. I mean, it is much bigger than the Humvee. But it's designed for being able to drive over IEDs, and I mean, shoot, these things are heavy. So I can only imagine how big the battery pack would have to be in these. I mean, at least 200 kilowatt hours. There's no information on that. That's just me being hypothetical. But that would be my best guess, that, for something like this to have a decent range, 200 kilowatt hours, possibly bigger than that, honestly. But yeah, enough rambling. There it is. What do you think? Do you think this is a good move? I do. I think any move is great. Now we just need to get the Air Force converting the jets over to full electric. that would be the day. And honestly, it'll probably happen. I mean, I'm joking about it right now, but everything is going the way of electrification. So it's only a matter of time. I mean, we already have electric boats and motorcycles and cars, and we do have electric airplanes. Just starting to get into the very beginning of electric airplanes, of course. But I think we'll see more and more of those. So I'm joking about it, but in a way, I guess I'm kind of not. I mean, it would be great to see the Air Force flying around in electric jets. That would be really cool. So that is all for this week. Next week, I actually have an EV owner story from a local business owner about his brand new Tesla Model X performance. So definitely tune in for that. Also, I'm planning on doing a fairly comprehensive review of the Chevy Bolt EV. I need to find time to be able to do that this coming week, but that's the plan anyway. So definitely some things to look forward to. As far as today's episode, feel free to send your feedback via email to hello@ev-resource.com. You can always leave a comment on the YouTube video here, and if you want to listen to any of the previous episodes, you can find them on the webpage under the podcast section or in any of the major podcast platforms. Any reviews that you can give in Apple Podcasts would be very appreciated. What that does is it helps other people find the podcast and just get more EV news and information out to the masses. And I invite you to come and say hi on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I am there. I am active, trying to engage in conversation as much as possible. So once again, that is it. Thank you so much for being with me this week, and we'll catch you next time.